Hey guys, if you're a math teacher, you've probably heard of cubes. I saw this pop up on my IG where a dad was celebrating his son's win using cubes to solve a two-step word problems. Now, if you're not a math teacher, cubes is just a system for solving word problems. And this is something I want to talk about today because I think we need to stop using cubes after a certain age and ask better questions with a better system. So as a teacher, what am I really looking for? Why do we keep saying show your work? Why are we always extra about it? Make such a big deal. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for correct solutions, obviously. I want accuracy that demonstrate a thorough understanding of those ideas and those skills that we're teaching in class. That means I need to see that you understand a real world problem and how math is applied to it. So are you making that connection between what you're learning in class and how it can be used to solve different problems? Are you accurate and consistent? Not getting it right just one time, but can you consistently get it right? Because I cannot tell you how many times a kid will get it right just one time and then say, I got it before a test and then massively fail. We need that practice again and again to just lock in those skills and to just challenge ourselves and to make sure we know how to do it. We want to know that we're doing it completely. And just from beginning to end, how are we getting to the problems? And are we using a sound procedure? Meaning that procedure, I can use it again and again in different problems and I can still get the same answer. Is it reliable? Because kids can do some mental gymnastics to get to that answer that have nothing to do with sound mathematics. The reasoning doesn't work. And so we look for that on the page and when we talk to kids, and we look for that in their explanations as well. So we're doing a ton of work as teachers to try and figure out what the kid understands and what they don't. And this is hard because they're building understanding in the moment. It's not a done product. We're going through that process with them. So what is cubes? Cubes is just an annotation system. It's a mnemonic, a way of remembering the steps for breaking down a problem that stands for circle, underline, box, evaluate, and solve. And it's something that tons of kids use in order to remember the steps for how to break down a word problem. I completely get and understand why elementary school teachers use this system. It's a great entry point for kids to start breaking down word problems that tend to be a lot harder to comprehend and process than a regular math problem. Problem is that as math teachers, if I want to know what a kid understands and what they can apply, this is not going to give me that type of evidence. And let me show you why. Let's pretend for a second that you're given this passage. This passage is completely in Spanish. If you know what it says, great. And if you don't, perfect. I want you to look at this one for a second and watch how I can apply cubes even if I don't understand what's happening in the text. And this is what's happening for tons of our kids who are differently abled, who may be learning a new language or may have different learning needs. They're doing something on the page, but it isn't really evidence of them understanding. So again, ask better questions. The first step just says to circle key numbers. So easy enough. Here's a number and here's a number. And let's think about it. How old were you when you first started to recognize the difference between a number and a letter? What? 3 years old? So a 3-year-old can do this first step. Does that mean a 3-year-old can read and understand this problem? No. The second step is underline a question. Again, a young kid in kindergarten will probably recognize the symbol for a question. You put a question mark. So all I have to do is look for the question mark and I see one right here. So this sentence must be the question. So all I did was underline it. This is not the same as knowing what the question is asking. So I'm confirming two things about cubes right here. That even though I can do these two steps, doesn't mean I understand at all what this is asking us to do. And the third one is boxing the keywords. So again, if I'm reading through this, and I'm pretending I don't know Spanish, I know I do, but let's look at the most obvious Spanish English words that we can see. So starting from the beginning, rectangle is something that we can recognize. Rectangular, I'm saying it with an English accent. Rectangular is a rectangle. It has a base, an area, And let's say the other word that a kid might be able to recognize, or a person who doesn't know Spanish, is volume. So that might be a stretch, this one right here. So just from that information, I can use some context clues to figure out this is probably asking me to find the volume of a rectangle with those numbers. So again, I see kids do this all the time. They start boxing every word they may think has a connection to math. Like every time they see the word each, I see kids boxing it and just put multiply next to it. Or if they see per or whatever. But not all that information is important. And again, it doesn't show you know what to do with those numbers. And here's the next problem when we get to evaluate. By the time a kid is in, I would say, 4th grade, they can do every single operation with regular numbers and decimals. And by 5th grade, they could also do it with fractions. So if I just took those two numbers, 42 and 5 3/4, by the end of elementary school, I can do some kind of math with these two numbers because I can do any operation with them. But it doesn't mean I know what this question is asking and what to do with it. And I might take the guess and just say, well, I'm just going to multiply these two numbers together. And that's what ends up happening. A lot of kids just do something. And so I'll start to see math on the page where they're doing something, but it doesn't mean that they're actually doing the right thing. So that's really the problem with this, is that you can look really busy. And if I'm a kid who doesn't know math, or who doesn't have a really strong concept of math, or I might be overconfident, I might do stuff and say I'm doing my work, but it doesn't mean that I understand what's happening, and it doesn't mean that I may not need additional support. And that's my issue with cubes. I can look busy. I can look like I'm doing something. I can look like I have something on the page and go down the complete wrong path. And as a teacher, I want to make sure that I don't have confirmation bias, which is I want my kids to be engaged. So as long as they're doing something on the page, I'm good. I keep going. So I'm confirming. It makes it look like they know what they're doing when I don't really have that evidence. And that happens all the time because these prompts, the great for 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, but I would even say after 5th grade, this doesn't work. So what should I use? Well, I'll show you what I use. I use an annotation system called Solve. I saw it happening at a school where kids were having fantastic results, and it was showing how kids were putting more responsibility in their work. It was easier for kids to get feedback. It was easier for kids to show what they knew. And it was easier for teachers to identify what kids understood and if they needed support. And it was a way as a teacher for them to model for students what they were doing. So this is what SOLVE stands for. Pretty simply, you're stating the problem in your own words. You're organizing information. You're lining up your plan. You're verifying your game plan. And then you're explaining and finally checking. So this seems very close to, but there are some subtle differences here that take a kid's math to the next level, which is what we need by the time they get to 5th and 6th grade. With the first step, you're just stating the problem in your own words. In other words, instead of just underlining the question, can you interpret it into your own words and express it? So that's simply just a sentence saying what it is the question is asking you to solve, or what is the unknown in words. And sometimes I even take that to another level and even write an expression next to it. The second step is organizing information. That is more than just circling the keywords, but it's really listing and explaining those keywords, all that information. So any information that's in the problem, or even information that is not in the problem, that could be like the question type. There might be a reference that you need to add in there. So like a conversion fact, just something else, some other information that may not be in the problem that you need in order to solve it. So just listing all the key information that we need in order to solve the unknown in the problem. I love this step right here, both when I'm modeling and when I'm working with kids. And it's really lining up my game plan in words. I need to have a game plan. I need intention for what I'm looking for and how I'm going to do it. And as a teacher, that helps me see a kid, like, is that plan mathematically sound? Does it make sense? Will it always work? And for me, when I'm modeling, It helps a kid follow along to see what it is I'm doing, because we've all had that teacher who has math all over the page and we can't follow along. We have no idea how they got from step 1 to step 2. It's one of the reasons why I really can't stand Khan Academy videos, because it only has the mathematics and doesn't really show a game plan in words that someone else can follow. The third step is to verify that plan. In other words, just put it into action. And this is important because this will show me if the kids have a sound way and understanding of the concept. This shows me if they know how to apply it accurately. And they might have a computation error. That doesn't mean that they don't know how to do the problem. It just means they might have a different type of error, a skill error, or a common mistake. And that would be great for me to see. So I'm always looking at that one. And that again looks very similar to just evaluate, but it goes further because I connect it to the plan itself. So that's really why I compared and I moved to using solve instead of using cubes. Again, I know why so many teachers use it. It's easy, it's snappy, it's easy to just pop a poster and everyone else is doing it. But is it giving us the information that we actually need in the classroom? No. And it's just confirming that the kids look like they're busy, and that's easy enough, but that doesn't mean they really have understanding. So in my videos, I like to use solve instead. Again, when I'm modeling, it makes it so much easier for kids to see my plan, to see what other information I needed, and then to see how I put my plan into action. That is super critical for kids because I'm being explicit and clear about what I intend to do and how I did it. And that was a big shift for me, because before I would say it and then just do it. And now that information is captured somewhere for my kids. My kids would go home and they'd forget how to do it, or they wouldn't remember exactly how I said it or what the steps were, and they couldn't replicate it. They couldn't model in the same way. So as a teacher, it helped me to be more clear and precise when I was modeling. At the same time, for my kids, it levels up their game, because now they're taking on more responsibility, and it is a habit that takes time to build. Especially for 6th graders who are not used to writing this much, it can seem like a lot. But for kids who do start doing it in 6th grade and consistently use it in 7th and 8th grade, they are more able to show evidence of their thinking and their understanding on exams and classwork. And as a student in the class, that means they can get feedback because you can clearly see and follow along what they did. And I'm not guessing what they did and what they intended to do. I can see it on the plane. This was their intention. This is what they did. And now I can give feedback or ask them questions. Same thing on an exam. If someone else is grading their paper, they can see what they understand, what they didn't, what they intended to do, and where they may have gaps, and where the successes are. So that's it for today. My goal is to persuade people to move beyond cubes by the time you get to middle school. It was appropriate for elementary. It's not appropriate for where we need our kids in middle school. And by the time they get to high school, we can possibly evolve it and move past needing this annotation system, because they should know how to break down these word problems. They've internalized that process. So that's it for today, Math Marvels. I hope you found this super helpful. If you want to see me model, solve for yourselves in a future video, please let me know. Or if you really want to argue why cubes is more appropriate for your class, please do. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. Be well.